welcome to this deep dive.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, where we're going to be looking at some of humanity's experiments that could have ended humanity.
Like wiped us off the map kind of experiment.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, the ones that make you kind of go like,
Yeah.
what were they thinking?
Yeah.
So we're talking nuclear tests,
Yeah.
messing with the very building blocks of life.
Oh, wow.
Even sending signals out into the vast, silent universe.
That's a lot.
It is a lot, yeah. And it's going to be kind of a wild ride.
I'm ready.
So, it's a journey through the history of science, but with a bit of a twist,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
We're looking at the times when human ambition might have gotten a little ahead of itself.
Yeah.
And what that tells us about the choices we're making today.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, because while some of these experiments are in the past and others are very much still happening,
Right.
which I think is kind of a freaky thought.
It is.
Yeah, it kind of makes you think, doesn't it, about how much we really understand the consequences of what we're doing, especially when we're pushing the limits of knowledge like that.
Absolutely. It does raise questions about responsibility for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think a good place to start would be at the beginning.
Okay.
Let's go back to when the world first encountered the atom.
Ah, the Trinity experiment.
Yes.
The first atomic bomb test.
First one ever.
July 16th, 1945.
Wow.
In the middle of the New Mexico desert.
Just picture it.
Yeah, you've probably seen the pictures that blinding flash the mushroom cloud towering into the sky.
Yeah, it's an iconic image.
It is an iconic image, and it really did mark the beginning of the nuclear age.
It did.
But it was a moment of incredible uncertainty.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the physicists there, Enrico Fermi,
Yes.
was so unsure of the outcome that he actually took bets on whether the explosion would ignite the atmosphere and destroy the planet.
He was literally gambling with the fate of the planet.
You're kidding me.
I'm not.
They were actually gambling with the fate of the planet.
It really highlights the, unknown unknowns that they were dealing with.
Unbelievable.
Imagine being in their shoes.
Yeah.
On the verge of unlocking a force of nature unlike anything humankind has ever seen.
Right.
And you have no idea what the full consequences might be.
That's both exhilarating and terrifying at the same time.
It is.
Yeah, it really makes you think about all the scientific discoveries we're making today.
Yeah.
And, how do we even assess the risks
Right.
when we're stepping into the unknown like that?
It's a question that scientists constantly grapple with.
Yeah.
And we're going to see it come up again and again as we go through all these experiments.
Right?
But for now, let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
From the vast power of the atom
Yeah.
to something much smaller,
Uh-huh.
but potentially just as dangerous.
You're talking about the superbug,
Yes.
the one that could eat, well, pretty much everything.
Exactly. Ananda Chakrabarty's creation back in 1971.
Right.
It was supposed to be a solution,
Oh.
a way to clean up oil spills using a genetically engineered bacterium. But what he ended up with was a microbe
Yeah.
that was capable of consuming almost any organic material,
Including plastic.
including plastic, and resistant to all known antibiotics.
So instead of cleaning up a mess, it could have become the mess.
Imagine this.
Oh.
The superbug escapes containment,
Oh.
starts consuming everything in its path.
Oh, no.
From oil spills to forests, crops, even our own bodies.
That's terrifying.
It is.
What's even crazier is that he actually got a patent for this superbug.
He did.
It was one of the first patents ever granted for a living organism.
Which raises all sorts of questions
It does.
about, where do we draw the line between scientific progress
Yeah.
and, tampering with the fabric of life?
Right. And who controls that power, right?
And who controls that power exactly?
Okay, so we've had nuclear anxieties and microscopic terrors.
Right.
Let's take things to a slightly larger scale space.
Oh.
Specifically, the time the U.S. decided to detonate a nuclear bomb high above the Earth.
Ah, yes. Starfish Prime, 1962.
That's the one.
They weren't just testing a weapon. They were testing the effects of nuclear explosions on the Earth's magnetosphere.
I see.
The visual must have been incredible.
Yeah.
An artificial aurora borealis visible for thousands of miles.
It's almost beautiful in a terrifying kind of way.
It is.
But I bet it wasn't so beautiful for the satellites that got fried by the blast.
That was an unforeseen consequence.
Uh-huh.
1/3 of all satellites in orbit at the time.
Wow.
Many belonging to other nations were disabled by the electromagnetic pulse from the explosion.
So not only did they create this massive disturbance in space,
Yeah.
but they also managed to damage other countries' property in the process.
Oops.
Talk about an international incident.
It's a reminder that even when we reach out into space, our actions have very earthly consequences.
Yeah, and it raises questions about long-term effects of things like space debris
Uh-huh.
and the potential for conflict in this new frontier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it makes you
Yeah.
think about how we regulate our behavior in space,
Yeah.
especially as more and more countries and even private companies are getting involved.
That's right. The Starfish Prime incident was a key driver behind the UN Outer Space Treaty in 1967,
Okay,
which outlines principles for the peaceful use of outer space.
I see.
But as our technology and ambitions continue to grow,
Right.
we may need to rethink and update those guidelines.
Yeah, to keep pace with the new challenges we're
No,
creating.
exactly.
It's like we're constantly playing catch-up, trying to figure out the rules of the game as we're playing it.
That's a good way to put it.
But speaking of pushing the boundaries of science,
Yes.
let's dive into the world of particle physics.
Ah, the Large Hadron Collider.
Yes.
Now, there's a project that captures the imagination,
I'll say.
both for its possibilities and the anxieties it provokes.
You're talking about smashing atoms together at nearly the speed of light,
Yes.
trying to recreate the conditions of the Big Bang.
It's mind-blowing stuff.
It's mind-blowing stuff.
And it has led to some incredible discoveries,
It has.
helping us understand the fundamental building blocks of the universe.
Right. But there are some who worry about the potential for creating things like
Yes.
microscopic black holes or strange forms of matter that could be unstable and potentially dangerous.
That's a possibility.
Wait, black holes?
Uh-huh.
Like the ones that suck everything in?
Right.
Are we talking about accidentally creating a cosmic vacuum cleaner down here on Earth?
It is a concern that some physicists have raised.
Yeah.
But the scientific consensus is that even if these micro black holes were to form,
Okay.
they would be so small and short-lived that they wouldn't pose a threat to Earth.
Okay. That's a slight relief.
Good.
But it's still a little unnerving to think that we're creating conditions that have never existed before on our planet.
Right.
Conditions that could potentially have unforeseen consequences.
That's the gamble we take with scientific progress.
Yeah.
Pushing the limits of knowledge always involves a certain degree of risk.
True.
But let's move on to an experiment. That takes us beyond the realm of our own planet,
Okay.
out into the vastness of the cosmos.
You mean SETI?
Yes.
This search for extraterrestrial intelligence?
That's the one.
Now there's an experiment with potentially mind-blowing or maybe even terrifying consequences.
It has been a long-standing dream of humanity. To know if we're alone in the universe.
Right.
For decades, we've been passively listening, hoping to catch a stray radio signal from an alien civilization.
Right.
But now some scientists are talking about taking a more proactive approach, actually sending out targeted messages into space,
Oh, yeah.
hoping to get a response.
Wow.
It's called active SETI, or METI,
Okay.
messaging extraterrestrial intelligence.
Got it.
But not everyone thinks it's a good idea.
Really?
There are some, like the late Stephen Hawking, who warned that contacting a more advanced civilization could be disastrous for humanity.
Kind of like how things went down when Europeans first encountered Native Americans. Not exactly a model for successful interspecies relations.
If we were to encounter a technologically superior civilization,
Right.
we could be vulnerable to exploitation or even annihilation.
Oh, wow.
It's a risk we need to weigh very carefully before we start shouting out our existence to the cosmos.
So maybe listening quietly is the safer option for now.
It might be.
It's like that saying, better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
I like that.
Or in this case, better to be thought a lonely planet than to broadcast our location to a potentially hostile alien civilization.
Right. It's a sobering thought.
It is.
And it raises some fundamental questions about our place in the universe and how we approach the unknown.
That's Steve.
But let's shift our focus now.
Okay.
From the search for alien life to a mystery that's closer to home, yet equally profound.
You're talking about dark matter, right?
Yes.
The invisible stuff that makes up most of the mass of the universe.
It's one of the biggest mysteries in science.
It is. It's kind of eerie, isn't it?
It is.
To think that most of the universe is made up of something we can't see or directly interact with.
Right.
But we know it's there because of its gravitational effects on visible matter.
Exactly.
So how do we go about studying something we can't even see?
Scientists have built incredibly sensitive detectors, often located deep underground, to shield them from cosmic rays.
Oh, I see.
They're trying to catch a glimpse of these elusive dark matter particles as they pass through the Earth.
It's like trying to catch a ghost.
Yeah.
You know, it's there, but you can't quite grasp it.
A fascinating challenge.
It is.
But some physicists have proposed a rather unsettling theory.
So,
They suggest that the act of observing dark matter could cause it to change, potentially triggering a cascade effect that could destabilize the entire universe.
Wait, so just by looking at it, we could mess up the entire universe?
It's a very speculative theory, and not one that's widely accepted, but it does highlight the fact that even in our attempts to understand the universe, we might be influencing it in ways we can't fully comprehend.
It's almost like the universe is playing hide and seek with us.
Yeah.
And the more we try to find it, the more it evades our grasp.
Perhaps, but maybe that's part of the beauty of science.
Yeah.
The journey of discovery, the constant questioning, the realization that the more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know.
That's a good point. It keeps things interesting, right?
It does.
So we've journeyed from the dawn of the nuclear age to the depths of space and the mysteries of dark matter.
Quite a journey.
You've given us a lot to think about.
I hope so.
You have.
But this is just the beginning.
Oh, really?
There's much more to explore in this deep dive into humanity's potential for both brilliance and self-destruction.
Oh, boy. I am ready for more. Buckle up, everybody.
Here we go.
Okay. My head is officially spinning.
Yeah.
Nuclear bombs in space superbugs, black holes.
It's a lot.
And a universe we could potentially break just by looking at it too closely.
Right.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
It's a bit like looking into a funhouse mirror, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
You see this distorted reflection of ourselves.
Yeah.
Our ingenuity, our ambition, but also our capacity for making mistakes.
Right.
For underestimating the consequences of our actions.
That's a warped reflection.
Yeah, exactly. It's like we have this drive to push the boundaries.
Yeah.
To explore the unknown.
Yeah.
But we don't always have the wisdom or the foresight to anticipate what we might find.
It's true. That's the double-edged sword of scientific progress, isn't it?
It is.
The same curiosity and ingenuity that allows us to unlock the secrets of the universe can also lead us down some dangerous paths.
So how do we navigate that tension? How do we balance our thirst for knowledge with the responsibility to protect ourselves and our planet?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
And it's one that we as a species are still grappling with.
Yeah.
But I think these experiments offer some valuable lessons.
Like what?
Well, for one, they highlight the importance of humility.
Okay.
We need to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
That we can't predict every outcome. And that sometimes the best laid plans can go terribly wrong.
It's like that saying, pride comes before the fall.
Yeah.
Or in this case, scientific hubris comes before the potential annihilation of humanity.
Exactly. We need to approach scientific progress with a healthy dose of caution.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we're not infallible and that our actions can have unintended consequences.
But caution doesn't mean halting progress altogether, right?
No, of course not.
We still need to explore.
Yes.
We need to innovate. We need to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Absolutely. Stagnation isn't the answer.
Right.
But we need to do it responsibly. The clear understanding of the risks and a willingness to course correct when things go wrong.
It's like driving a car.
Yeah.
You need to press on the gas to move forward, but you also need to be aware of your surroundings. Use the brakes when necessary.
Yes.
And always have a plan for where you're going.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks.
And just like with driving, experience is a crucial teacher.
Yeah.
We can learn from the mistakes of the past, from these near misses.
Right.
And use that knowledge to inform our future decisions.
So what are some concrete steps we can take to ensure that we're steering the wheel of scientific progress in the right direction?
Well, I think it starts with education.
Okay.
We need to make sure that future generations understand the potential consequences of unchecked scientific ambition.
Right.
That they're equipped to ask tough questions and challenge assumptions.
It's about fostering a culture of critical thinking, isn't it?
It is.
Not just blindly accepting what we're told,
right,
but actively engaging with the ethical and societal implications of scientific advancements.
Exactly. We need to have open and honest conversations about these issues.
Yeah.
Involving not just scientists, but also policymakers, ethicists, and the general public.
Because at the end of the day, these aren't just scientific questions.
No, they're not.
They're questions of the future of humanity.
Right.
It's our collective responsibility to ensure that science serves us, not the other way around.
I couldn't agree more. And it's not just about preventing catastrophe. It's also about harnessing the power of science for good.
Right.
These experiments might highlight our capacity for self-destruction, but they also demonstrate our incredible ingenuity.
That's true.
And our ability to solve complex problems.
It's like we have this amazing toolbox of knowledge and technology.
Right.
But We need to learn how to use it wisely and responsibly.
Yes, we do.
We can build a better future,
Yes.
a more sustainable future, but we need to be mindful of the potential pitfalls along the way.
I'm reminded of the ancient Greek myth of Icarus.
Oh, yeah.
Who flew too close to the sun and plummeted to his death.
Right.
It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition. But it's also a reminder of the human desire to soar, to explore, to reach for the stars.
So maybe the key is not to abandon our dreams of flight.
No.
But to learn how to fly safely.
Yes.
With awareness, with respect for the forces we're dealing with.
Precisely to combine our audacity with wisdom, our curiosity with a sense of responsibility. That's the challenge.
It is.
And the opportunity that lies before us.
It's a challenge that I think we're capable of meeting.
I agree.
We've learned a lot from these near misses, from these glimpses into the abyss. Now it's time to use that knowledge to chart a course toward a future.
Yes.
Where science is a force for progress, not peril.
I'm optimistic that you can achieve that humans are incredibly adaptable creatures.
We are.
We have a remarkable capacity for learning, for innovation, for collaboration.
Right.
And when faced with a challenge, we tend to rise to the occasion.
That's a hopeful thought.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that this isn't a passive process.
No.
We can't just sit back and hope for the best. We need to be actively engaged.
Yes.
Asking questions, demanding transparency, and holding our leaders accountable for making responsible decisions.
You're absolutely right. The future is not something that just happens to us.
No.
It's something we create through our choices and our actions.
Right.
And it's up to each and every one of us to play a role in shaping a future where science serves humanity, not threatens it.
So what can we as individuals do to make a difference?
Yeah.
It can feel kind of overwhelming, when you're talking about issues of this magnitude.
I understand that feeling, but I think it starts with awareness.
Okay.
The more we understand about these experiments, about the potential risks and the ethical dilemmas, the better equipped we'll be to make informed decisions and advocate for change.
So education is key.
It is.
Reading, researching, listening to podcasts like this one.
Exactly.
It's about arming ourselves with knowledge so we can participate in the conversation.
And don't underestimate the power of conversation. Talk to your friends, your family, your elected officials. Share your concerns, ask questions, challenge assumptions. The more we talk about these issues, the more likely we are to find solutions.
It's about making these topics part of the public discourse.
Yes.
Not relegating them to the realm of scientific journals or government reports.
Exactly.
These are issues that affect all of us.
They do.
And we all have a right to be part of the conversation.
I couldn't agree more. We need to move beyond the idea that science is something separate from society.
Yeah.
Something that happens in a lab or a research facility.
Right.
Science is woven into the fabric of our lives.
It is.
And we all have a stake in shaping its future.
So we need to be informed.
Yes.
Engaged and vocal.
Absolutely.
But what about the practical side of things?
Yeah.
Are there specific actions we can take to mitigate the risks of these experiments?
Absolutely. Let's revisit some of the examples we've discussed. In the realm of nuclear weapons, we can support organizations that are working towards disarmament and nonproliferation. We can advocate for stronger international regulations to prevent the development and use of these devastating weapons.
It's about shifting our priorities, isn't it?
It is.
Investing in peace and diplomacy, in finding solutions that don't involve the threat of global annihilation.
Exactly. When it comes to biotechnology, we can support research into ethical guidelines and safety protocols for genetic engineering.
Yeah.
We can push for transparency and accountability in the development and application of these powerful technologies.
It's about ensuring that the creation and manipulation of life is done responsibly.
Yes.
With a focus on the long-term consequences for both humans and the environment.
Right. And as we continue to explore space, we can advocate for the peaceful and sustainable use of this new frontier. We can support international cooperation in the development of ethical guidelines for space exploration.
It's about recognizing that we're not just exploring space for ourselves,
right,
but for future generations. We have a responsibility to act as stewards of this vast and precious resource.
And it's not just about space exploration. It's about all of our scientific endeavors.
Right.
We need to be mindful of the potential impacts on the environment, on biodiversity, on the delicate balance of life on our planet.
So it's about connecting the dots, isn't it?
It is.
Seeing how these seemingly disparate experiments are all part of a larger tapestry.
Yes.
A web of interconnectedness that we need to be aware of.
Precisely. And it's about recognizing that we have the power to choose a different path.
Okay.
A path that leads towards a brighter and more sustainable future. It's not an easy path.
Right.
But it's a path worth taking.
It's a path that requires courage, imagination, and a deep sense of responsibility.
It does. But I believe we're up to the challenge.
I do too. Humans have an incredible capacity for resilience.
We do.
For innovation, for compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can harness those qualities,
yes,
we can create a future where science is a force for good, not a harbinger of doom.
That's a powerful message to end on. So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave you with this thought. The future is not predetermined.
Right.
It's a story we're writing together.
Yeah.
And it's up to each of us to choose the ending.
And remember, the pen is in our hands. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
How these experiments, the ones that could have wiped us off the map, actually lead to such a hopeful conversation.
I think so.
It's like staring into the void makes you appreciate the ground you're standing on even more.
I agree. It's a reminder that the things that make us vulnerable, our curiosity, our drive to push boundaries, are also the things that make us capable of incredible resilience and problem solving.
Yeah, we're not just these reckless creatures, bent on self-destruction.
Right.
We're also capable of learning, adapting, and ultimately choosing a different path.
And that's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's not a one-time decision.
Right.
It's a continuous process of questioning, evaluating, and course-correcting.
So it's not just about surviving these potential apocalypses.
Right.
It's about using them as lessons to create a future where science is a force for good, not just a source of anxiety.
I think that's a beautiful way to put it. These experiments, as unsettling as they might be, force us to confront some fundamental questions about what it means to be human in a world where we have so much power.
Yeah, it's like we've been handed this incredible power, the ability to split the atom, to manipulate the building blocks of life, to reach out into the vastness of space. But with that power comes a tremendous responsibility.
It does.
And that responsibility, it's not just on the shoulders of scientists or policymakers.
Yeah, it's not.
It's on all of us.
It is.
You're saying that we all have a role to play in shaping the future of science. But how can we as individuals make a difference when we're talking about things like nuclear weapons or genetic engineering? Those seem like such massive systemic issues.
They are massive issues, absolutely. But even the most complex systems are made up of individuals making choices big and small.
So you're saying that our individual choices, our actions, our voices, they actually matter.
They absolutely matter. It starts with education, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
But it goes beyond that. It's about engaging in conversations, asking questions, holding our leaders accountable. It's about making conscious choices as consumers, as citizens, as members of a global community.
So it's not just about understanding the science.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding the impact of that science on our lives and on the world around us.
Precisely. And it's about using that understanding to make informed decisions, to advocate for change, to create a future that aligns with our values.
But it can be hard to know where to start, can't it?
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of these issues, to feel like our individual actions are just a drop in the ocean.
I understand that feeling. But think about it this way. An ocean is made up of countless drops of water.
Yeah.
Each drop might seem insignificant on its own, but together they create a vast and powerful force.
So you're saying that our collective action, even small ones, can have a ripple effect.
Yeah, exactly. It starts with a conversation, a question, a choice. And those ripples can spread, creating waves of change that can transform our world.
That's a powerful image.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me think about the butterfly effect. The idea that a small change in one part of the system can have a huge impact somewhere else.
It's a beautiful metaphor for the interconnectedness of our world and for the potential that each of us holds to make a difference.
So what's one concrete action that you would recommend to our listeners, something they can do today to start making those ripples?
I would say find an organization that is working on an issue you care about, whether it's nuclear disarmament, climate change, responsible biotechnology, or something else entirely, and get involved, donate, volunteer, spread the word.
It's about channeling our concern into action, isn't it? Moving beyond feeling overwhelmed and finding a way to contribute to be part of the solution.
Exactly. And remember, you don't have to be an expert to make a difference. You just need to care. You need to be willing to learn to speak up, to act.
It's about reclaiming our agency, isn't it?
Mm.
Recognizing that we're not just passive bystanders in this unfolding story. We are the authors, and we have the power to shape the narrative.
Beautifully said. And that power, it's not something to be feared, it's something to be embraced, because when we recognize our own agency, when we choose to act, we become architects of a future that reflects our values, our hopes, our dreams.
It's about shifting from a mindset of fear and despair to a mindset of empowerment and possibility. And that shift, it starts with each of us.
It does indeed. So as we conclude this deep dive into humanity's self-destructive experiments, I want to leave you with a sense of hope. We have the capacity for both brilliance and folly, for both creation and destruction, but ultimately the choice is ours.
We can choose to succumb to our fears, or we can choose to embrace the challenge, to learn from our mistakes, and to create a future worthy of our potential.
And that future, it's not some distant utopia. It's something we're building right now with every choice we make, every action we take, every conversation we have.
So let's choose wisely. Let's choose hope. Let's choose to create a world where science is a force for good, a tool for progress, a source of wonder and inspiration.
And remember, the journey starts with a single step. What step will you take today?
That's a great question to ponder. And on that note, we'll leave you to your thoughts. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep believing in the power of human ingenuity to create a better world.